Hey guys, and welcome back to the ASX Investor channel, and welcome to another CEO interview. X-ray is a critical technology that's used in a range of sectors around the world. However, as a technology, X-ray really hasn't fundamentally changed over the past 100 plus years. Today we'll be diving into the story of MicroX. ASX MX1 is a company pioneering a new technology that's looking to revolutionise the X-ray industry around the world. Their product range has the opportunity to feed into a range of huge global total addressable markets. They've got a first mover technology. It's a fascinating one, and we're really looking forward to unpacking the story with the CEO and Managing Director, Peter Rowland.
Welcome to the channel and enjoy.
Thank you. It's great to be on.
It's fantastic to have you here. There's obviously a lot of different components of the MicroX story, but before we dive into those specifically, maybe if you can give the overview of who is MicroX and what's that solution that you're really trying to solve?
Okay, so MicroX, obviously we're focused on X-ray. That's the core that connects all the parts of our business. What we've done is we've invented the first new way of making X-rays. Since William Röntgen did it, 100 years ago. Not for any other reason, but we make it an awful lot more smaller, and we make it electronically controllable. And those two advantages allow us to make X-ray products that just weren't imaginable with conventional technology. There's some other benefits as well in that it's a bit like a lot of people refer to it as being similar to the change from incandescent light bulbs to the LED light bulb in terms of its reliability and its power efficiency, and that's actually quite opposite to what we're doing here. So the products, as well as being new and game changing, are inherently reliable and simple and cheap. So we're planning to take the world by storm with this technology, which lots of other people have tried to do and are still trying. We're the first. We think we're probably 5 to 7 years ahead. So we're working hard to try and get as much commercial distance from those who would follow us, because it would be crazy to think that somebody won't find a way of following us sometime, because the products that we can get from this technology are just so exciting.
And I think most people are familiar inherently with X-rays, probably when they've gone to the hospital, and we know that it's quite embedded in a lot of what we do, but you've outlined those two key pillars surrounding healthcare and security. Can you talk about the scale of the market and what's that opportunity that you really do see with what you've got on your hands at the moment?
Look, there's an awful lot of things that you can do with this technology. And the company story is we started off with bedside X-ray. Which is in itself not novel, because people have had X-rays that you can wheel up to someone's bedside in a hospital and take an X-ray without having to move the patient down to radiology. They've been around for 30 years. The difference is that they're like 600 kilogram, half-ton machines, very bulky, and if you're trying to X-ray someone in a tight ICU cubicle, then weight and space are not your friend. So that our launch product was a bedside imager, and that allowed us to prove the technology and prove the company as a company that can develop world-leading products and take it to market. So we went to market originally with Carestream Health, one of the big top 5 radiology companies. They were successful, not as successful as we wanted. We've got over 250 units operating in 30 countries around the world. So we've done what we set out to do in terms of proving the technology and the reliability. That original agreement was exclusive. Now it's not. And so we're starting to build up our own sales effort globally to really build that to the next level. And that's a work in progress at the moment. You might have seen, we just announced yesterday another big distributorship in the US. So with the market position that we've built in the radiology industry, we're now getting access to the really best distributors in the world who want to come on board, because everyone sees that this is the new technology in X-ray. So that's where we start in medical. We sort of branched out. I'll just tell it historically because that kind of makes sense. We branched into security because the Australian Department of Defence asked us to. They basically the counter IED task force that looks at bomb disposal in difficult situations approached us because they heard we had some new X-ray technology and asked us if we could do something very special to help the world of bomb disposal. And one of the issues in bomb disposal is that you have a suspicious package, like a backpack, in an urban terrorist environment. It might be in an airport or a public space. You suspect it might be a bomb, but you don't know. And if it is a bomb, you need to know how it works so that you can make it safe. So X-ray is your friend, and they've been using X-ray for years. The problem is that to get an X-ray of a suspicious package like that, you've got to put the suit on and go up very close to it with the X-ray source, shine the X-ray through the package and capture the image on a detector behind. If it's a remotely controlled bomb, that's not very healthy. And often the terrorists don't plant a bomb where you can get a detector behind it because they kind of know what you're going to do. So the Department of Defense asked us if we could find a way of making X-ray like Superman vision. We call it a camera, i.e., so it works like a camera. You just point and shoot. So the camera broadcasts X-ray at the device, and we make the image from the X-rays that come back. So you don't need a separate detector, which means you don't need to place it manually. So we've now got a camera that's about the size of a giant packet of cornflakes, and self-contained, battery operated. So one of these little explosive ordnance robots can pick it up, take it down range, point it at the device, and from the safety of a kilometer away, you can see a lovely image of what's inside the bag and work out, A, is it a bomb, and B, what you're going to do to make it safe. So the Department of Defense paid for us to develop that and prove that it worked. We've since refined it, and it's our second product that's going to market later this year. Very exciting because it's quite a high margin product for us. Because the alternative is kind of unthinkable, and we kind of think there's some good pricing tolerance there, because if you can avoid going near something that might explode and kill you, then we figure that people might pay a bit to to avoid having to do that as part of their daily job. So already we're doing some pre-marketing in the US, Australia, the UK, and huge amount of interest. And pleased to see already that the Australian Department of Defence that gave birth to it has recently issued a tender that we're responding to. So that's a really nice launch vehicle as well for an all Australian technology story. That a huge market for that in the billions of dollars, because turns out there's an awful lot more bomb disposal teams around the world than you might think. Obviously, the military do a lot, but there are nearly 500 bomb disposal teams just in US state and county police forces. And you scale that around the world, and it's a huge market. So we're very, very excited by this product becoming completely game-changing. No one else can do it, and it changes. Obviously, classically disruptive. It changes the way bomb disposal is done around the world. So that's our first launch into security. Now, interestingly, that then led, because in the studies we did for the Australian Department of Defence, we discovered how good this, we call it backscatter technology, is at identifying explosives in a package. Because it just turns out, because of the physics I won't go into, but explosives kind of self-highlight in the image. And so we responded to a tender from the UK government about airport security and finding small amounts of explosive hidden in electronic items. Won a contract there, which then led to a very successful proof of concept demonstration, and they gave us another contract to go and redo that in 3 dimensions. And suddenly that set everyone's mind going, because now they saw we had the potential to miniaturize very, very high resolution X-ray for security in airports. And it turned out what everyone had been thinking of, both in the UK and in the US, was that with a miniature X-ray security sensor, you can actually extend the concept of self-service to include the checkpoint, because the trend in airports is to go self-service. It starts with passport control, where the machine will read your passport and look at your face and decide if the two match, and similarly access with your boarding card. What they wanted was to say, okay, well, if we could get the baggage in this in a little portal, self-contained, passenger-driven, then that's a much better experience for the passenger, and it's also better security. When the US government discovered this was suddenly not possible, they went out for a tender a year ago, which we responded to. We've won then 2 contracts for that, which we're very pleased about. The first is actually to develop this miniature baggage scanner. And you might have seen we had a press ASX release recently where we've just passed our preliminary design review with the department for that. So they're happy with the design of it. We're into detailed design with the view of delivering a prototype in about a year, towards the end of the year or early next year. But then the really nice thing is that they gave us a second contract, which was to integrate that miniaturized baggage CT with the design of the overall portal. So that is integrating the passenger access. So you use your boarding card to get access, and the little glass gates slide open. You go into the little portal cubicle, and then it reads your passport, confirms your identity. You put your bag and your cell phone in this little miniature baggage scanner, and all the time we've got our millimeter wave scanning your body for hidden threats on the body. Then the security analysis is all done automatically, and it'll do a threat assessment. If you've left something in your pocket, it'll prompt you to take something out of your pocket and put it in the X-ray, and of course it does this. It does this all automated. So with no human intervention, unless the image comes up with something suspicious, and they've got to send somebody down to do a manual check to see what it is. But the TSA, Transportation Safety Administration, who run all the airport security in US airports, they run like 4,400 X-ray lanes, and the nice thing about it is we can, with our little portal, we can get 7 of our little portals in the same footprint as one X-ray lane, and with that, an increase in passenger numbers as well as passenger experience. But the big thing is manpower, because the TSA, each X-ray lane in the US is like, it needs 7 or 9 TSOs, they call them, transportation safety officers, and that's each shift, and it's 3 shifts a day, 7 days a week. So their wage bill for manning these security lanes at the checkpoint is like $4 billion. And they're saying, well, look, if you can just halve the number of people we need to operate that, we've got $2 billion to spend every year on buying capital equipment. So absolutely huge opportunity there. Contract's going very well. We just got our portal design approved a couple of weeks ago, and latest release has got some pictures of that. But that's a little look into the future as to what every airport around the world is going to look like, and we're in the box seat to be the prime contractor that delivers that, because only we have the key technology. So the last of the four opportunities we're looking at brings us back to the medical world. And in its we're using the fact that we can not only miniaturize the X-ray tube, but by electronically controlling it, we can switch it very quickly. So what we're doing is we're making a CT imager using our technology with no moving parts. Sounds nice and easy, but you might not know, because they try and hide the fact with the covers if you've ever had a CT. But inside that big donut that it looms over you is a high voltage X-ray tube plus a heat exchanger plus a high voltage power supply plus all the switching electronics, and that spins around the patient at about 200 revolutions per minute, which is quite difficult engineering. It's got to do that very precisely, and obviously not shake itself to bits. Which explains why CTs are about $1 million a copy. There's a lot of engineering to make that happen safely. But with our technology, we can put an array of miniature X-ray tubes and then fire them in sequence. So we create the illusion of a rotating X-ray beam, but with no moving parts. And that allows us to get a CT image in obviously a fraction of the size and weight and cost. That's another journey. We've had funding for our first application for that is actually for brain imaging for strokes, because that's one of the areas where we see we get the maximum patient benefit to miniaturization. The backstory to that is that if you have a stroke, there are two kinds of stroke. It can either be a clot or a bleed. About 3/4 of all strokes are clots. And if you inject a clot-busting drug to a patient who's having an ischemic stroke, in the first hour, you get enormously good patient outcomes. The recovery is really quite exceptional. The problem is, you have to be absolutely certain that there isn't a bleed, because if there's a bleed and you inject clot-busting drugs, you kill the patient. So as a consequence, the standard of diagnosis before they will administer this drug, TPA it's called, is a CT scan. And you've got to be able to resolve at least 2 or 3 millimeter bleed. And then they'll look at the CT image, check that there's no bleeds, and then say, that's good, it's an ischemic stroke, give the drug. What is starting to happen around the world now is a move to make that stroke diagnosis using a CT machine mobile. So the first mobile stroke unit, as they call it, was in Berlin. The second was in Houston, Texas. The third was in Melbourne. So we're up amongst the leaders in this at the moment. What they did was they took the smallest conventional CT they could get, which is about 3/4 of a ton, and they put it in the back of a truck. Calling it an ambulance is probably stretching the word a little, but and then they dispatch this if they get a 000 call that sounds like it could be a stroke, and they image the patient at pickup. Obviously, imaging at the patient's door is much quicker, and what they've found is that they can get the time to treatment down. Obviously, they'll radio the image back to the hospital for the radiographer to look at the image and give the diagnosis. But then the paramedics in the ambulance could give the drug and start the treatment. And the results, the one in Melbourne has been running for 3 years now, are really outstanding. And there are now 36 of these mobile stroke units doing the same thing in countries all over the world. They're all reporting the same benefit in stroke management and outcomes. So we're heading to a place in a few years where mobile stroke diagnosis and treatment becomes the new standard of care for stroke. At which point, 2 years from now, we'll be doing our first patient trials. Our unit, probably around 40 kilograms, small enough you could put one in every ambulance. We've looked at trial fits in the Royal Flying Doctors, and they're very excited because obviously if you live in rural or outback Australia and you're a 4-hour drive from your nearest CT machine and you have a stroke, your future is looking pretty bleak. So the idea that you can we can get a CT that's so small to fit it in an RFDS airplane and fly it to a victim, image on the spot is life-saving in that outback medicine. So we're pretty excited about that. We've been funded with $8 million from the Australian Stroke Alliance, which is originally came from the federal government's Department of Health Medical Research Future Fund. Very visionary. They'd love to see Australia continue with our technology to be at the front of stroke management globally and to become a world leader in this new way of treating strokes. Yeah, that's the four opportunities that we're looking at the moment in MicroX, all flowing from this same core technology, all designed and manufactured here in Adelaide.
I appreciate the overview. It's fascinating to hear about. And I think even when just thinking about the threads between them, it's obviously all of them disruptive, massive runways ahead of them. You've got the first mover advantage. I'd love to think about when we think about the commercialization moving forward, is it just continue to focus on these as the products come online over the next few years? Obviously staggered. Are you thinking about potentially licensing out as well, further product development in-house? How are you thinking about that next runway up ahead?
Look, we're looking at all models. Obviously, the key thing is we're discovering in our first business unit with the mobile X-ray, the bedside X-ray. The secret to getting a good market share is to have because that's quite a contested market space. There's lots of people make mobile X-rays, so we're looking at multiple paths to market. Because just the way the market is, the more people that are selling your gear, eventually you get you just get the market share. With the new disruptive, we're looking at partnerships around the world we're going to do the development and proving here in Adelaide, and we've got that path. With the TSA in checkpoints and with the Stroke Alliance here which is obviously closely aligned with the Royal Melbourne Hospital and Melbourne Brain Centre. But yeah, there's no shortage of people now. Now MicroX is becoming a more famous global company that have got their hand up that they'd love to help with distribution and commercialization of these products, because everybody can see that how they're going to change people's lives and make a huge difference in the marketplace.
Yeah, it's a really compelling story. You've talked about that potentially 5 to 7 year advantage ahead of some of those other competitors who will obviously be working in the space. What does that look like 5 years ahead? If you do go well with the commercialization and you end up at that end goal that it looks like, what does that period look like for you?
5 years of bloody hard work. Look, our goal is to try and get all 5 of these, 4 of these products into production and generating sales by 5 years. Some are faster than others. I mean, the good news is that in the sequence that I mentioned, we've got one product that's designed and in the market. We've got another product. The design is almost complete, and we're ready to launch in coming months. And then we've got two in development. One, the checkpoints in the US, and our brain scanner in Adelaide. But they're sharing so much technology. I mean, so much of the image reconstruction algorithms are the same. The tube technology is the same. So there's an awful lot of common use between the two, which lightens the load in development. But our design team is moving from one product to another, and so each is at a different stage of commercialization. But getting them into production, getting them delivering large volumes of gross margin is the goal, and doing that before the nearest competitor catches us. So.
And yeah, I did want to ask you as well, with obviously the mobile X-ray, that's the first one into commercialization now. We're starting to see the revenue tick through. We saw it in the last quarterly. What are the lessons that you've learned with that? And yeah, how is that going to inform the strategies moving forward with that all?
Look, the problem we have, when we started, we put all our eggs in the one basket with one distributor, and that didn't turn out as good as they promised. A story a little akin to Nanosonics that investors might be aware of. So we're kind of following the same game plan there, building ourselves. The problem about that with the original OEM is that with that arrangement, we were relying on them to do the marketing and selling. So by the time we realized that wasn't working, we had to develop our own product under our own brand and create the brand image to support sales. We were playing catch up football, so that big lesson is, if we planned to do that from the start, we would have started earlier. So we're kind of been scrambling in the last year and 18 months, putting that new product and, even just creating the brand image, which we did at the Radiological Society of North America, big launch we did last November. Obviously, COVID hasn't helped in becoming famous globally because of the travel restrictions. But big lesson we've learned is start your commercialization, long before you've got a product for sale. And we've done that with Argus, the X-ray camera. I mean, we've had two sales guys, one in the US, one in Australia, both ex-Bontex, both with a big history of selling equipment, and they've been guiding us for the last 6-9 months, making the connections, making people aware of the product. So on the day that you're ready to sell it, you're straight out of the box. So yeah, that's the big lesson. And we're applying that in the same. It's a lot easier with. Of all the products that we're planning to make, the one that seems to resonate with everyone is airport security, because not everybody has strokes, but everybody gets pissed off by airport security. So we get a lot of empathy for that. So news stories about that and people becoming aware of this new technology is quite exciting. Of course, there's a lot of spin-off beyond that as well. Our little miniature baggage scanner, which is a key part of the portal, but that's got sales opportunities of its own, and we're planning to investigate those as well, whether it's in building security or even pop-ups for concerts and stadiums. And a miniaturized baggage CT that's portable and battery operated is really quite delightful. So there's a product there beyond the big game.
Fascinating to hear about. There's obviously plenty of moving parts within the MicroX story. Evidently, Argus is going to get a lot of attention over the next 6 months, particularly towards the back end of this year. But what are those key upcoming catalysts that investors should look forward to across the different pillars?
Look, continuing to build. We announced just yesterday the appointment of the second largest independent distributor in the US. And they've got global connections because they are owned by a big Korean detector manufacturer. So that opens up some other possibilities for us. We're really hanging on in building of the mobile VR sales, getting our CE marking. That's been an agonizing journey because unfortunately we just got caught when the European Union moved to a whole new regime in medical device accreditation. For the medical device directive became the medical device regulation, and so every medical device company around the world has been scrambling to get products reaccredited to this new standard. So the queues in the notified bodies that do that accreditation have been quite horrendous. We think we're very close to the end of it. And hopefully in coming weeks we'll get that CE marking, and that opens up a bunch of distributors who've already signed up, and some of them are already trained in Europe. I'm going to be going to the European Congress of Radiology. That's the big European radiology show in July in Vienna, and we're kind of hoping that we'll be able to sell out the blocks there in Europe. So that's a game changer. Other things, look, first prototype of the baggage scanner early next year. Just continue to hit the milestones on the stroke imager, and Argus. When we do the first tests on Argus, we've got a distributor that we're in discussion with. We've got excitement. We've got one of the guys from the FBI. FBI does all the training for bomb disposal in the US, both military and police forces, and they're just saying that this is the product that we've wished for and longed for so long. So they want to get one of the first units we've got to trial it, and that'll really help kickstart the sales there. So those are the big inflection points coming up.
Homegrown Aussie company flying the flag in global markets. It's always exciting to see. Did you have any final reflections for either longer term investors of MicroX or potential investors who might be looking at the MicroX story now for the first time?
We're trying to. We've established and it's risk mitigation as well as managing our growth. We've established a facility, a subsidiary company in the US based in Seattle, and the work we're doing for the Department of Homeland Security, the TSA in airport security, is being managed out of that facility. So it's part of a multi-domestic strategy. So we will build that facility and the capability in it, in both program management, engineering, software, to meet the needs of the local US customer, because that's where they're going to feel most comfortable. So you'll see that focus on security very much developing out of our US operation. So yeah, we are thinking about the global expansion of the company. We've set up a subsidiary company in the UK, which will be our base for operations there and in Europe as well. So it's not all going to be done in Adelaide, but the core technology here that feeds into all these business opportunities will all be done back here, where we've made the investment and proved the technology and proved how we can make it.
That is the MicroX story. It's ASX MX1. A big thank you, Peter Rowland, for joining us on the channel. Fascinating to unpack it all, and looking forward to seeing where MicroX heads from here.
You and me both. It's going to be a really, really exciting journey, and there's still plenty more to come because the technology is so disruptive. But we have our focus for the next few years. So thanks for that. It's been great to present.